Hello friends, in this particular presentation we will try to understand introduction of the smart grid. We will try to understand how a smart grid looks like and what is the need of a smart grid, the function of the smart grid. So the concept, need and the function of the smart grid we will try to discuss in this particular presentation. The rest of the points we'll be discussing the next presentation. So let's start with the smart grid. So when we talk about a conventional grid first before moving to the smart grid, we have a nuclear and the natural gas and the hydro plus coal being generating electricity which is being provided to the consumers. The consumers can be industrial, residential, or commercial consumers. So this is a typical conventional power system which we had, where solar and the wind had a very less percentage contributing this to this power system. You can see here the wind is contributing hardly 3%, whereas the solar is contributing less than 1%. So the renewable energy sources are very less, whereas non-renewable energy sources are being utilized more. So this all are being managed at a place, at a grid where people sitting are monitoring the flow of the energy, and it needed continuous monitoring throughout the 24 into 7, 365 days. So you can see, whereas when we talk about a smart grid, this is a small picture of smart grid which looks like. See, you can see it. Apart from the conventional sources, we have windmill as well as solar energy. So you can see here at a home, there is a solar rooftop which itself is providing how supply inside the house. That is the light which is being given into the house, the light point or the washing machine, on the television, or let's say the cooling unit or the socket, they are being energized through the solar panel or through the electric vehicle. The energy saved in the battery of electric vehicle can be used whenever it is required when the car is parked inside the house. Or you can have a cell, a storage cell which is available near the house, in the house, where that can be taken as an energy source, and at the rest of the time it can be charged here. Uh, the same thing you can see here, there is a meter which is having a net metering system, that is the supply can be taken from the grid or it can be supplied back to the grid. So overall, this is a picture of a smart grid where, apart from taking energy from the main grid, we are also being able to supply the energy back to the grid if we have surplus of energy available. So that surplus of energy can be from the solar, from the electric vehicle, or the storage battery. So this is how a smart grid actually looks like. So the block diagram, if we talk about the concept of smart grid, we have moving from the present grid towards the smart grid, towards the future grid. You can see here, presently there is a communication deficiency. The communication is occurring between transmission, distribution, and the substation, whereas there is no communication being occurred or being held with the customers. You can see only purple line, which is only the infrastructure of the electrical. That means electrical connectivity is there, but there is no communication between the consumers and the substations. This was a major drawback, or it is still a major drawback in the present in the grid, which can be overcome into the smart grid, in which you can see here the entire system is connectivity is through the purple line as well as the blue dotted line, which means the entire network is having electrical connectivity as well as communication connectivity. So communication is very important. The change from the present grid to the future grid is what the energy storage system being included into the grid, and the communication channel being established with the consumer. So these two are the major differences which are employable in the smart grid. That is, application of various energy storages, so plus inclusion of renewable energy sources and communication between the system. Uh, so this is another depiction of how a smart grid can be explained. That is, the communication network is important. So that's why I have depicted this particular slide. You can see here the communication is both way. So the two-way arrow indicates that communication is occurring from and towards. That is, from, let's say, distribution to the distribution substation, let's say distribution center to the distribution resources. So the communication is occurring to and fro throughout the system. So this is the concept of smart grid. So theoretically, we can define a smart grid as an electrical grid with automation, communication, and IT systems that can monitor the power flow from generation to the consumption point, which can also control the power flow or curtail the load to match the generation in the real time. So this is a definition of a smart grid which we have already seen earlier. So there are n number of benefits of using the smart grid. So if you are using a smart grid, then smart grid has to first of all do system integration. All the system has to be integrated together and the information and communication has to take place, which will enable consumers to use the resources economically. And because automation is used in the smart grid, so being automated, the system will become more reliable and it will become more stable. Moreover, the smart grid, since it integrates the renewable energy resources, which is environment friendly, and so thus the generation alternative will be available in the form of storage and the renewable energy sources. So you can see here the smart grid integration will have three important features. That is, it will promote customers' choice, it can improve the reliability, and it can also integrate the renewable energy sources. So in order to improve the smart grid or additional features, there are n number of sensors which are available throughout the grid or throughout the power system, which will try to help out the system to maintain its stability and to give the information to the each part of the system. So communication network will again try to give the information throughout the system. You can see here two-way arrows which will give the information to the utility, to the customers, to the distribution side of the substation. Now, why we need a smart grid? It's very simple. If we see the differences between the current system and the smart grid, you will understand why we need a smart grid. For example, let's say if we talk about the business model, initially we had, the current system which we are having a business system where there is central ownership. There is no distributed ownership, and hence we are bound to a specific person or a specific group to purchase electricity. Obligations to serve, the utility will provide everything and the customer has to only pay. It has no role to do. Whereas in a smart grid, customer pays and utility has some provisions. The generation, when you talk about in current system, it is centralized, whereas in smart grid, it will be distributed and it will try to cover most of the renewable sources. When you talk about transmission and distribution, the power flow is only one way, that is from generation to the customers through transmission and distribution. Whereas in smart grid, the power can flow in both ways. That is, the customers can also, or the consumers can also supply power back to the grid if it is in excess or if they don't need it. In metering measurement, the accumulated usage is given to the consumers. For example, there is a billing cycle. There is a monthly cycle after every month, and you will come to know the usage of the electricity or the power which you have consumed in the last cycle. Whereas in smart grid, it is an interval measurement, which means you can give a measurement of the usage every hour or every minute, let's say, or maybe weekly. It's up to you. It's up to the programming, how the program has been done on the smart meters. So this is more a real-time data which is available in terms of metering measurement. When you talk about the rate, the fix or the rates are the pricing are not properly been done. Uh, Whereas in smart grid, the actionable prices are done, which means if the demand is high, the prices will be high. If the demand is low, the prices will come down, which is not happening current in the current system. And then the customer roles, they become more active. The customer becomes part of the system where where the customer can play important role. So that's why these features which are having the smart grids, it definitely supports us that we should definitely need a smart grid. What are the benefits of the smart grid on a whole, or we can summarize is that it has a storage options, it has a good power quality, then it has an energy efficiency system, demand response, and electricity market, self-healing, and then energy generation. So these are basic properties which we have in the smart grid. There are other advantages. Again, we have discussed these advantages on the previous slide, the rating and the customer roles and some advantages. The last section, that is function of a smart grid. What is the function which it has to perform? It has to do the real-time monitoring of the grid. It has to do an automated services, that is, it has to diagnosis automatically throughout the system. It needs to provide the operators a helping hand so that the operators have less problem in identifying the solution or correcting the system. Similarly, it needs to have an automated responses in order to isolate the disturbed zones or to prevent the cascading blackouts. Then the plug and play ability, which means you can easily take the energy and give back energy to the grid. So easily plug and play ability. Automatic restoration, that is, in case of any problem, the power has not to be curtailed, and a second option or the second route has to be searched out so that the power is still maintained in the system. Now, enhancing the ability to a large amount of solar and the wind power, that is, moving towards more renewable energy sources. So these are the functions of the smart grid. Then self-healing consumer participation, resistance to the attack, and high power quality accommodated generation options. These are again net metering. These are the options our consumers can have in terms of energy management. So if we talk about energy management, these will be helping the consumers to manage their energy effectively. So basically, we can find that the power system has following functions to do: as a self-healing, power system reliability to improve power quality, to integrate renewable energy to give more privacy and security, and inculcate the energy storage systems. So this was all about the introduction to the smart grid. We will deal later part into the coming slide. I hope you would have understood this particular presentation. Thank you.